This is the Marathon Handbook Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Doyle, and I am joined by the whole crew, Katelyn Tocci, Alex Sear, and Jessy Carveth. And we are going to break down the second half of the year that was 2025. Last week, we did January to July, gang. And this week, let's go through the rest of the year, talk about the highs and lows, the big stories, the controversies, the scandals. We left off last week talking about UTMB, Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc. And let's start this one off with, I think, what's turning out to be one of the big stories and unfortunately big scandals of the year, and maybe one of the most fascinating stories that we covered throughout the year. The rise and demise of the Grand Slam Track League. Oh man, where do we begin here, guys? I guess we go all the way back to the beginning. We go back to the first meet. The whole idea was, for those of you who are unfamiliar, I'll set the table here. Grand Slam was this really cool idea. It was a startup track league started by icon in the sport, Michael Johnson, who came up with this idea where he's like, okay, we're going to do the same thing that you see in like tennis with the big slams, the Grand Slams in tennis. And we're going to do 4 track meets. We're going to do one in Jamaica to start things off. Then we're going to do Miami. We're going to do Philadelphia. And then we're going to cap it all off with a huge last slam in Los Angeles. Spoiler alert, it didn't make it to LA.
They did not.
They did not. They had to cancel the meet. So we're just going to shoehorn in this whole controversy, scandal, financial mess that ensued right here to start this episode off, because this is just a crazy story. Absolutely crazy story. I'll start with Jessy, because you covered this so closely.
Yes.
Alex and Katelyn and I, we did a podcast episode, I think entirely dedicated to the promise and potential perils of the Grand Slam Track League when it first started. Jessy, you've been covering this from the very beginning. You've written, I don't know, like a dozen or more stories about Grand Slam, maybe 20 plus even. When was the beginning of the end of Grand Slam in retrospect?
I mean, from the beginning, really.
Oh, man.
There was just an end.
It's just a slow end.
It was always just a slow end, realistically. I mean, like from Kingston, they had poor like attendance and everything, and that was kind of the first signaling of issues. And I mean, retrospectively looking back, we found this out later, but after that, one of their key investors that was supposed to give them millions ended up pulling out. But that obviously wasn't disclosed until later. But then I guess kind of like the big red flag to the public was in like mid-June when they canceled their final LA meet. And then about a month later in July, it was revealed. And this was the very, like, when the floodgates began to open, was that they failed to pay a rental fee. It was just under $78,000 rental fee for the Miami Grand Slam, but they hadn't paid. That was revealed. And then, after that, the walls just came crumbling down. And most recently now, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. A whole laundry list of creditors have come out. And I mean, athletes alone, they're owing around $10 million in unpaid fees to athletes. And the biggest one is Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone is owed over $365,000. That's like a house.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
You can buy a house with that. And then countless other athletes are owed 6 figures as well. So now
it feels so terrible for those athletes, because I feel like maybe as we did as well when we did the first podcast about it, we had a lot of faith in the project, or at least we were really excited about the project, because after watching Sprint, the Olympics in Paris, a lot of people were getting really into watching track. And so this was going to be another way that it was going to kind of put it on the map and have all of these meets, Jamaica, 3 in the States, and really, really put track on the map. And so I feel so bad for these athletes who put all of their faith in it. and they were, join the Grand Slam League, the team. They were going to participate in all of these meets, won or, placed, and were promised all this money and then didn't get it. And I just feel terrible for them having kind of put all their eggs, in that basket saying, I want to be part of this really great idea, which it was. And I think we even saw, even before the LA meet got canceled, I think another bit of a hint that something wasn't quite right was when they shortened the third meet, correct? So like the Philadelphia meet was supposed to be 3 days. They shortened it to 2 days. And so kind of the wheels kind of slowly started falling off. But I think we were still hopeful that it was, maybe there was a different reason that they shortened it for 2 days. Did they come out at that time with the exact reason why they took that third day off?
I don't think so. I
No.
was, and I can't blame the athletes for being fooled because
Of
I was
course
totally
not.
fooled. Like in that time in the summer when they were shortening the meets, even when they canceled the LA meet, I was fully under the assumption that they were doing this to try to save face.
Right.
That Michael Johnson was realizing that the spectators weren't quite turning out. And so they wanted to tighten the product to have something cool to show to investors. And they thought, well, if we condense it in 2 days, maybe this keeps the hype across 2 days. I didn't realize this was such a failure to launch. It never dawned on me that maybe they didn't even get the initial money from investors. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like this could be a whole Grand Slam pod, and I don't want to take it all that way, but this is a time when my financial knowledge runs short, and I'm like, are these people going to get paid back? Like if I'm Sydney McLaughlin Lavroni,
No.
the answer is no. There's no,
So
there's
when you
no
file-
fallback. There's no, give me a chapter 11 bankruptcy, throwdown.
Like 101.
So what happens in this situation is the company is falling under bankruptcy protection, which law in the United States indicates that, financial laws, you can slide behind bankruptcy protection, which basically means that all your creditors get into a lineup and there's a hierarchy that's created in terms of first collector to the smallest, lowest collector. That is adjudicated, I believe, either by an arbitrator or a judge at some point as to who gets paid first. But for all intents and purposes, if they're claiming bankruptcy, they have no money. They're basically flushing the company. All these entities are going to probably get left holding the bag here. I mean, if there were any assets to sell off, like if they owned any equipment, anything like that, or if they owned some intellectual property that they could sell off and find a buyer, that's a way they could pay some of their debtors here. But the likelihood that Sydney McLaughlin or Gabby Thomas, who you, Katelyn and Alex, you both interviewed Gabby Thomas for a podcast episode that we did at TRE a week and a half ago. And she spoke pretty candidly about how she's like, no, I would never participate in this again if I were, approached about it. But those people are never going to get paid. They're never going to see any of this money.
Although, if you do see a few signed pictures of Michael Johnson floating around eBay, for the sake of the athletes, please buy them.
Buy them and then send them the money. Yeah. Start a GoFundMe. Yeah. No, crazy amount of money.
2025 has been the best running year of my life. I've had 3 personal bests in the 5K, the 10K, and the half marathon. And I don't think the secret is that complicated. I just haven't been getting injured. I think a big reason for that is that I've started to take my post-run hour much more seriously. So instead of sitting on the couch, eating empty snacks, and watching reruns of The Office, I've been taking momentous creatine. So it's become a bit of a habit. I take it after my run. I like their flavorless white creatine powder. It dissolves in a glass of water. Sometimes I put it in a recovery beverage, and I have it after the run. I've never been a huge supplements guy, but with the Momentous Creatine, there's no fear. It's NSF certified. It's used by a bunch of pro athletes, also every NFL team, and even the US military. Now, my goals are probably a little bit different from those of your classic infantry officer. I take it to help my muscles recover so that I'm ready for the next day's run. And bonus, we're also learning that creatine may be fuel for the brain. And so I like to think that it helps me stay sharp for this podcast and ensures that I always have something to respond to Katelyn and her wild facts and Michael and his sarcastic jokes. Right now, Momentous is offering our listeners up to 35% off their first subscription order with promo code MARATHON. So go to livemomentous.com and use promo code MARATHON for up to 35% off your first subscription order. That's livemomentous.com, promo code MARATHON. Back to the show.
What's really fascinating about all this, when you have a bankruptcy filing like this, these are public records that we can now see exactly right down to like the cents that are owed to each creditor. And there's all sorts of interesting people listed here, including our colleagues at Sidious Mag, who were apparently paid $250,000 to do PR marketing work, which I don't think many people in our world were aware of beforehand. Yeah, I'll just leave that at that. I'm not gonna. I understand that you gotta pay the bills these days, but I think that surprised some when that was on there.
Yeah, I was surprised.
You guys didn't think I was going to talk about this, did you? Everyone's getting a little nervous all of a sudden here. It's
no,
like,
I fully expected that you were going to mention it.
We expected it. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, listen,
it's public. It's public record.
It's public knowledge now, so
it's out there,
right?
And it's all over the Let's Run message boards and whatnot. Yeah. So anyway, it's what's fascinating here as well is I think it's interesting that certain athletes seems to have gotten paid, whereas others did not. I don't understand entirely why that is. I'm sure there's a perfectly valid explanation, or maybe it was just a more assertive agent representing someone like Grant Fisher, because he's not listed as a debtor in this filing. So I assume he got paid. Another interesting thing is, based on what's owed and based on what was public in terms of payments to athletes, we could now figure out what each athlete got more or less for an appearance fee if you start doing a little bit of math. Mm-hmm. That's something that has previously never been divulged by any athlete. So that's a fascinating thing to look at as well. It really gives you a clear understanding of what it costs to run a world-class track meet and what they were willing to pay, whether that was foolish or not, and also what some of these athletes earned or didn't earn in the end because they never got paid. So just a crazy story. I don't think the story is done. Jessy, I think for better or for worse, you're going to be covering this story well into the new year. I suspect lawsuits. I suspect maybe even potential. I would imagine the U.S. Justice Department looks at this because it's like you can't tell people you have money and then it turns out you didn't have any money to set up a multi-million-dollar business. So
that's the thing that bugs me the most is that Michael Johnson knew after the Kingston meet that this big investor that was supposed to give them millions pulled out.
Yes.
So he knew he wouldn't have the money to pay these athletes going forward. So why didn't he do something about it before? Why did he keep making them show up, making them race and put on these big meets if he knew he wasn't going to have the funds to pay them? That's what ticks me off the most. It's like you should have stopped it in its track right there. If you don't have the money in the bank, you don't run the meet. You shouldn't run a meet on hopes and dreams.
No, and like what I mentioned before about, maybe these athletes declined other competitions or declined other activities. Sure. Yeah, where they were going to show up and they would have gotten their appearance fees. And that's what makes me feel, terrible because they're probably shutting down other things to be able to participate in Grand Slam track. And then at the end of the day, we're not compensated for their time.
Yeah. And then for me, it's also still a bit unbelievable that in all the articles and literature I'm reading about what Michael Johnson is saying about this filing is that he's using it as a restructuring and somewhat still has a tone that he's going to bring it back next year. But you've lost all the trust in athletes. What athletes are going to come to race in your event?
You would have to pay them in advance, not for the winnings, but you would have to pay the appearance fees in advance for any athletes to actually
100%.
Try, for them to regain any of that trust. That would be 100%.
That's the thing. He just needs to take it in the face as what it is right now. And I feel like he's not, he's still saying, we're restructuring, we're going to rebuild. It's no, mate, I don't think
it's
you
over,
are.
Dude. It's over. Yeah.
Sorry.
And and what sucks about all this is I feel like one of the uglier elements of this story was that throughout the year as Grand Slam was starting to have problems. The folks over in Europe at World Athletics were like kind of vocal about these failures and sort of celebrating the failures and doing a little bit of a victory lap with each problem that Grand Slam ran into. And I thought that was very tacky, very unprofessional, showed a real divide between Europe and North America in the track world. And also it's like, guys, I hate to break it to you, but World Athletics, you're not doing it right either. Just because Grand Slam failed does not mean that track is in a healthy place and that what you're doing is brilliant. By no means is it brilliant. So it's a damn shame that this thing failed because it was a cool idea. And I hope it doesn't set us back a generation, but it may. So,
Yeah,
okay.
like it was super promising, but yeah, it's unfortunate it didn't pan out.
Yeah. Okay. So let's pivot to something a little bit more positive
A little
here.
more positive. Here we go.
Although perhaps no less controversial for Jessy and I. Oh man.
Oh, now I know where we're going with this.
Yeah. The newest World Marathon Major was unveiled and took place this year. The Sydney Marathon at the very end of August became the 7th World Marathon Major and opened the fall slate of World Marathon Majors. It was a big deal. Lots of people ran the event. It was kind of one of the hottest entries you could get in running globally this year. And Sifan Hassan was brought in. Eliud Kipchoge was brought in. It was like the Sifan Kipper kind of dual headliner weekend. I just felt like every influencer under the sun was there. There was a lot of attention in Sydney at the end of August. So we're months away now. What's each of your lingering take from Sydney? Mr. Sear, what's your lingering take from the Sydney Marathon experience as now that Sydney is a World Marathon Major?
Yeah, as you and Jessy both recover from the many boomerangs flown at you after your own takes on the Sydney Marathon. But I actually think that you had a point. So the controversy that you mentioned, I think, is that you both were somewhat skeptical of Sydney's place as a major and the lack of noise maybe that it made in its first year. You guys blamed the coverage a lot, and I can see why some of our Aussie listeners got upset because they were like, it's the coverage, that it's Flow Track, they're the problem. It's not us. The race was awesome. You come and check it out. And I think that's fair, but I think that every year from now on, Sydney will have to make twice as much noise as other major marathons, not only because they're new as a major, but because they're so far. Australia's far for everyone across the world. And that's a challenge that they're going to have to contend with. What stands out at me? Great move for bringing Sifan Hassan and Eliud Kipchoge. Next year, they will have to do the 2026 version of that, which obviously will not involve Eliud Kipchoge. They will need to have the male version of current day Sifan Hassan, who these days might be Sebastian Sawe, might be John Courier, but one of those guys.
Yep.
And it would be lovely if Sifan Hassan went back. It would be, this is what I want from the Sydney Marathon 2026. Take the Lokedi-Obiri rivalry and take it down yonder, baby. That's what I want to see.
I believe it's down under. Down
it is down under.
Where's down yonder?
Down yonder?
Where's down yonder?
It's down
at?
under.
Wait, you haven't heard the song? I come from a land down yonder.
I don't think that's how.
I'm pretty sure
What?
it's down under.
I'm pretty sure too.
Not in
It's down
Canada,
under.
I don't think.
Alex, there you go. We did it again. We're going to get attacked by our Australian listeners yet again. I apologize. I apologize on behalf of my team. Australia, we love you. We would love to come to Sydney. You know what? Maybe we'll be there in 2026 to cover
Who
the event
knows?
live. Maybe
We
we
may be
will.
there.
Maybe. Yeah. So I think you're on to something, Alex. I think that that's a smart move from an elite standpoint to bring that duo, because those two athletes, Obiri and Lokedi, are both very good at what? They're very good at tactical, hilly, challenging races. Boston and New York is where they've been doing battle the last few years. The issue with Sydney is that it is not a fast course. It is a hilly, technical, challenging course. Looks pretty beautiful. I think from a mid-pack runner standpoint, pretty cool experience to run the Sydney Marathon, but you're not going to get world records in Sydney. So it's going to be a tough sell at the bleeding edge of the sport, unless you spend a lot of money. And presumably they cut a big fat check for the Kipper to show up and for Sifan Hassan to show up in Sydney. Katelyn, what's your takeaway? What's your big takeaway from Sydney?
I think you just like teed it up for me. My takeaway with Sydney was exactly that. That I think that Sydney is maybe it's not the fastest course out there. Looking at the elevation change and all of that, it's not. It's more of like a Boston, New York. So Alex's idea of the Lokedi Obiri, to me, that would be the perfect course for them to go to, right? And duke it out there. So I think that Sydney is going to be another one of the up and coming major marathons. That's the experience marathon for most people, because it is going to be that kind of tactical style of racing. So, who doesn't want to go to Australia? I would love one day to take a trip to Australia. So I think it's going to be one of those things where, you plan to go, you've got the marathon, you have a really wonderful vacation. You get to see the city, you get to see part of, a new place if you're not from there. So I think it's going to be a really great experience marathon where people are just going to, like they do with, with Boston, when you're talking about those harder races to run. Tokyo, it is a really flat course, but I guess it also depends what you want out of your marathons. But let's just say Sydney to me is going to be one of those awesome experience marathons that everyone's going to want to go and tack onto their bucket list.
Jessy, we've the wounds have almost healed from the maiming that we received in the aftermath of our instant reaction podcast when we covered Sydney live at the end of August. What's your takeaway? Has your opinion shifted? I know you and I I think we both thought that the race itself, the visuals of the race looks cool, finishes in front of the Opera House, the iconic Opera House in Sydney. Beautiful looking city. You run over some bridges. Obviously looks like a challenging course. The broadcast was pretty terrible this year. I don't even know did they not even have audio for the first half an hour? I feel like it was just sort of a mess. But that's not the race's fault per se. What's your takeaway?
Okay, well, I think like Alex and Katelyn kind of hit the nail on the head there, in that if you're looking for a PB, it's not a race for you. And if you're looking for an experience for a holiday, then yeah, maybe it's for you. But in an era where it's like, if you want a challenging course and not like a fast course, I think it needs to have some sort of like, I don't know the word, but like a presence. Like, Boston. Boston's a hard course and it's going to be hard to PB on, but it has that, it's Boston, and same with New York. It's a challenging course, but it's iconic. It's New York. I don't think Sydney has that yet. And I think that's what will make it hard, and make the appeal challenging, because, there's already those courses that are challenging that have that level of iconicness to them. And so that's where I think the selling point is hard, because, okay, if you're not going to attract fast runners, you need to attract runners that want a hard, challenging course or a holiday. But if you're trying to attract runners that want a harder, challenging course, you have to almost beat out Boston and or New York in a way, almost, because, okay, you can attract the Australian runners, but if you want to attract an international audience as well, an American is more likely going to try and target Boston or New York than if they want a challenging course. You know what I mean? Because of all that travel, the cost to go there. So I think that, the combination of it not having the depth in history to be an iconic Boston or New York makes it challenging. The distance, the cost, that all in and of itself makes it a hard sell, I guess. But then also, what I do appreciate about it, and especially after our instant reaction and how passionate the Aussies are, is that it almost gives me a Valencia feel, especially after attending the Valencia Marathon and seeing how like passionate and how they really made it theirs. I think I can see, I haven't attended the Sydney Marathon, of course, so I can't for sure say this, but that's kind of what I feel with that, is that they're very patriotic about their marathon, so, and passionate and prideful, which is really good for like the Australian running community, but I think it will have a tough international appeal.
It just might need some time. It'll get there.
Yeah,
it just needs some
exactly.
time to grow.
I think you also perhaps are underestimating the draw and the depth of the pockets of those who are seeking to do the 6-star / 7-star quest, right?
The 6-7-star, but that's also a very small population in the marathon running population.
Yeah, but it will make sure that there's always going to be 30 to 35 to even 40,000 people wanting to do this race, I think, in the end. And yeah, so I agree with all of you that I think that it's going to take some time for Sydney to figure out what its identity is as a world marathon major. Mm-hmm. As a high quality regional marathon in the Oceania sort of South Pacific region of the world, absolutely quality race, and it has been for a number of years, but it's grown very quickly because it became a world marathon major basically overnight. And I think for it to forge out its identity as a major is going to be something that is going to probably have some growing pains. And, you know, like we can say like, oh, Boston's got the Newton Hills and the tradition. And it's like, yeah, because Boston's 130 years old and it's like the first marathon.
It's been
ever.
A minute.
Yeah. And New York has been around for 40 something for almost 50 years. And it runs through, you know, it's the craziest course in the world because of where you're running, right? So you're running through the center of one of the biggest cities in the world. And Sydney is obviously not one of the biggest cities in the world either. So TBD on what the identity of Sydney will be as a world marathon major. I'm curious to see how it plays out. I'm curious. It'll be a really exciting story to see which elite athletes they draw next year. That will give us a sense of where things are going. And I should say, before we move on from Sydney, that Sifana-san set a course record. She ran 2:18:43, which is pretty damn impressive for the challenge of the course. And Haile Mariam Quiros won in the men's race in 2:06:06. And we should also note Mr. Kipchoge ran 2:08:31 and finished 9th. Okay. On to September.
And just a side note, I've got a few athletes already going to Sydney next year, so who have already gotten in. So there is for next year. Yeah,
I've got
be a
lot of
3 right now who are already confirmed to go. So
Yeah.
they're excited.
And don't get us wrong.
I think Sydney will only keep growing. It's just going to take time to get through those growing pains and, like you said, find its identity, find what makes it a major, you know what I mean? It just needs that time. I think any race that becomes a major has to go through those growing pains. It's change, so.
Right.
World Athletics Championships
that was
held
fun.
in Tokyo throughout September. Guys, there are too many storylines to go through here. We would just be doing like a 2-hour podcast on the highlights of the World Athletics Championships. So I will turn to each of you and I will ask you what you think the biggest moment and the best performance was, and give me a grade, like a letter grade of this World Athletics Championships from your perspective. Mr. Sear, we'll start with you.
Biggest moment, I will reference the women's 5,000 meter final, as it felt like we were observing a battle for distance running supremacy. You had Faith Kipchoge coming in from the bottom side of the 5,000. She's a 1,500 meter specialist and maybe the most celebrated track athlete in the world that year. And then coming from the top side of the 5,000 was Beatrice Chebet, the 10,000 meter specialist and the first woman to go under 14 minutes for 5K earlier that year. Kipchoge was the 1,500 meter champ. Chebet was the 10,000 meter champ, and they duked it out at the line. And Chebet just edged Kipchoge out. And rarely do I feel like I witness such excellence in sports. It was these two women at the peak of their powers, both Kenyans, so like country women, likely with a type of rivalry there, although it kind of felt more like a big sister, little sister thing.
They seem like
Faith
best
Kipchoge.
friends, don't they?
Yeah.
When they finish it,
good
I
vibes
love their
between them, for sure.
vibes. Yeah.
Well, that probably comes from the fact that there's, 7 or 8 years of difference between the two. So you could imagine that Chibet likely had spent a lot of time looking up to Faith Kipchoge as she was coming into the sport, and then seeing the two of them really duke it out and then have Chibet actually edge her out was just an awesome moment. And then having the 10,000 and the 1,500 meter races as build-ups to the 5,000 were really cool. So to me, I think that was the biggest moment. And someone else here will have to talk about the marathons because I left those ones on the table.
Like, that's mine.
Yeah, you don't get to take it all.
The exciting thing with that race too that I really like, that I think is like forgotten, is Faith Kipchoge initially got disqualified for pushing, but then she got her, after they like appealed it, and then got her medal back. But initially she was disqualified.
Right.
And it was,
thank God for those appeals, man. There were a few times in World Champs that it would have totally killed the story. And look, my sympathies to poor Cole Hawker, who wasn't able to reverse his faith in the 1,500, but glad that Kipchoge was able to.
Yeah. The referees and marshals on course with their high tight white socks, ruining it for the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
What's the letter grade, Mr. Sear?
For the entire championships?
Yeah, give us an overall score.
I give it an A. And the only reason I'm not giving it an A+ is to not get too much into the marathons, because I suspect we're going to talk about them. I think there needs to be some thought around when we do these World Championship marathons, or at least where. It's too hot. It's too hot. And most of the top athletes in the marathon drop out or get overheated or have awful days. It creates a different type of drama around it. It allows ways to the podium for people who in another day probably don't necessarily belong there. I don't want to take away from any of the athletes who actually hit the podium, because, I mean, props to them. They had the best day on the day that it mattered. So that's, we're going to talk about Julia Paternain and how she ran a phenomenal race. But is it really what we should be going for? Running a marathon in, if you're in Fahrenheit 90 plus degrees, or if you're in Celsius nearing 40 degrees, it kind of distorts the sport. I don't think you would do a marathon in a few degrees below zero. And I feel like this is kind of the heat alternative. And so I know that World Athletics is talking about this. I know that some athletes have voiced concerns, and it was clear that didn't change this year. But I mean, the race was still epic, so it gets in it.
Okay. Yeah, I think, that's an interesting point. And as you were saying that, I was like, yeah, Alex is definitely right. Like, you have to make sure that there are perfect conditions. However, maybe as a trail runner, I'm also kind of like, well, the conditions that are thrown at you, if you're the best on that day, and maybe those conditions are more favorable to you than they are to the fastest runners in the world, well, then those conditions are great for you. Because I always think that there's so many more things that go into a race. And I know it's completely different, but thinking about trail, like when I cross the finish line of a race and I see someone there who perhaps had been ahead of me at some other point, they're like, well, I got lost. So and I was like, well, that's part of the race. It's part of it. Like, you have to be able to navigate. And if you didn't take the time to look at the markings or to check your watch to make sure you are on the route, it's kind of like all part of the race. And the conditions are part of that. So maybe some athletes, like we saw, are better in the heat than others. So it gives them a chance to shine because that's there. It's like a runner who's better at running a hilly course than running a super flat course. These are all conditions that have to be taken into consideration. So, also, like you said, props to those who were able to shine through that day because of those conditions. However, I do understand, but we're having trouble all around the globe with things heating up for marathon season. So to mention my favorite, which is the one that you teed up for me, Alex, was absolutely for me. The marathon finishes were incredible, right? Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that I like more than watching a sprint finish. I just absolutely love that. I mean, Kipchoge just sailed past a Sawe in the last, I don't know exactly how much it was, 100 meters, 200 meters, like the last, like just getting into the finish line. And not only, it's not like she just edged her out right at the end. She took a commanding finish at the end of that race and just sped by her. And you could just tell she was not looking back. She wasn't going to fizzle out. She had it in her mind and was convinced that she was going to get that first place. And I love a Sawe. But this from Kipchoge just showed so much grit. You could just see her teeth. She was just like, couldn't you guys see that? Like she was just like clenching that jaw, like gritting her teeth. It was amazing.
I thought her teeth were going to just like pop out of her mouth. She was so intense. She's such an intense runner, and it's such a fun runner to watch, especially when she's in it in the last, kilometer or mile of the race. Yeah, that's really one of the standout moments. What's your grade? What's your overall? You're a teacher. What are you gonna? What's your grade? What's the letter grade you're gonna write at the top of the paper here for Tokyo?
I think fantastic, incredible. I'm going to just give it an A-, not to copy Alex. And I do understand that world championships are about first, second, and third place, or they're about placing, maybe not so much as world records, but I think it's always fun sometimes to be able to see people, someone maybe, and maybe some of the biggest names or the biggest distances that we saw. I don't think that we saw anyone edging out a world record there. So that would have been really fun just to make it, blow off the charts. But of course, the moments, I mean, it was just an incredible world championships. And I'm not going to mention the other marathon because I'm going to leave that for someone else because I'm sure that's on your lists.
By just off memory here, at least on the track, not incorporating field events, but at least on the track, I don't think there was any world records at these world championships. I know Sydney McLaughlin-Lavrone came very close. I think she ran the second fastest 400 in history.
Yeah.
And I think that 400 has got an asterisk next to it because I think it was an East German athlete that ran that time. So
yeah.
Maybe the unofficial world record was run by her, but it is what it is. Jessy, what's your big moment? What's the big moment from Worlds for you?
Also the women's marathon. But for a different reason. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the sprint finish, and I especially love watching Perez Kipchoge race. I've watched her race in person a few times, and I just think she is like one of the best championship style racers. I mean, maybe the best championship style racer on the planet. She is always so smart with her racing. She knows, when to go. She knows how to hide well, like that poker face. And yeah, just the sprint finish at the end was iconic. But for me, the highlight of the day was Julia Paternain of Uruguay. I love an underdog story, and I think the photo of her like shocked in the face holding up like the three fingers is like burned in my memory forever. Yeah, I love an underdog story, so it's always nice to see, kind of someone rise up on the day. And yeah, I mean, kind of to Alex's point, I think I kind of disagree a bit that like, yeah, that's what championship style racing is. It's dealing with what you're dealt on the day, but also to consider like these athletes know where the world championships are. They know when the world championships are. They know it's going to be hot. They can take steps to prepare for that. They can train in the heat in the weeks or months leading up to that, or they can not. It's up to them. But yeah, I think the whole, I mean, okay, 40 degrees is quite excessive heat, of course, but I think the whole like not fun. I mean, I guess fun in championship style racing is that anything can happen. It's not like it's a, pan flat course where you're sitting behind paces and going out. Like there's a tactical astuteness you need to have. You need to deal with the conditions. You need to be aware of the runners around you. And I think that's what makes a championship style race a championship style race. So yeah, I think that's kind of what, and we don't get to see those often, especially with the women, because a lot of the times at the majors and whatnot, they have the pacers. So yeah, I think having that championship style racing with all those variables is something special we get to watch. And yeah, the women's marathon was just something special this year as well.
Yeah, I'm going to side with Jessy on this one here just for a second before I get your letter grade, Jessy. I think that Alex, we wouldn't have had one of the signature moments of 2025 in running, Julia Patterney crossing the finish line after running with one of the most grueling marathons you're ever going to run, like 90 plus degree weather, stinking hot, humid as all hell, a total chaos on the course. Nobody kind of knew, like, it was just an appalling thing to watch. Total, like, gripping television. And she crosses the finish line in the stadium because they finished the race. You had to do a lap inside the stadium, which I think is glorious. She crosses the finish line and she has no idea what place she came in, but she ran the race of her life. And then she discovers by looking at the big board in the stadium that she finishes third and won a medal in the World Championships. And was just like, and we all got to see that in like 120 frames per second slow-mo in real time. Is it like, she's like, what? And then she kind of has this like emotional catharsis in front of us. Like just one of the special moments, like it's just a classic sports moment. Come on, dude. Like that was awesome.
Yeah, no, I actually think it raises a good question of like how much of a race should be controlled. And I agree with all of you to an extent that, you know, randomness is a key part of sports as a whole. The Berlin Marathon was really hot. Should we have called it back? Should we have canceled it? Does it deserve a weird asterisk? No, but I think that there are limits to all these things. And so I think that's the question that I'm asking myself, because I agree. The Patterney moment was amazing and she deserves all the credit. She prepped for it and she did it. I also saw her qualify for the world champs at like a smaller event, the McCurdy Micro Race Series. It made watching a world medalist engaging because it almost felt like winning a world medal was somewhat attainable, or not to me, but at least you kind of got to know who was on the podium. It didn't feel like the people winning were superhuman or of a whole other species. They were kind of like you and me, and they showed up on the day and they made it work.
They were like you, Alex.
I'm like, maybe
not
like you.
Not like Katelyn and I. Maybe a little bit like Jessy, because you're a professional athlete too. But
at the very least, we were at the same event, and that was
that's right.
Kind of cool to see.
And it was a small event, and yeah, you got to sort of see behind the curtain to a certain degree. Okay, Jessy, what's your grade? Give Tokyo a grade.
I think there's beauty in the chaos, and I think there was a lot of chaos in Tokyo, and it was wonderful. And I'm gonna give it an A- and a half, like between an A- and an A.
What even is that? Like a 92.3%?
What is that grade?
Oh, goodness gracious.
I like it. A- and a half.
Yes.
Okay. You guys have just left it out there for me, so I'm taking it. I think the signature moment, and really one of the most spectacular moments in world championship marathoning history, is Alphonse Simbu of Tanzania entering into the stadium one step behind Emanuel Petros of Germany. And it seemed all but a done deal that Petros was going to win the gold medal. He had the step on him, and they're both just absolutely trucking it for this final lap around the track. What a glorious, cruel, dramatic, ecstatic experience to have to run that marathon in those conditions, in those awful, grueling conditions, to survive it. And then you have to enter into the track like some sort of gladiator 2,000 years ago. And you got to run as hard as you can. And suddenly it's a track race for 400 meters in front of thousands of people. And that's what took place. And I thought for sure that Petros had it won. And then somehow in the last like 5 meters, Simbu somehow like distorted the space-time continuum. And I don't know how the heck he did it, because he's not 7 feet tall. Somehow closed this gap on Petros and won in a lean. And the win was a closer photo finish than the 100-meter finals.
Wow.
Like, that's how crazy it was. It was, I think, on record as perhaps the closest photo finish maybe in track history, if I'm not mistaken. It's ridiculous. Like, if you have not seen it, press pause on the podcast right now. You have permission. apologies if you're out running and listening to this right now, because it might be a bit awkward. And go to YouTube and watch that finish. It's absolutely nuts. It's one of the, it's maybe the moment of the year overall in athletics. Incredible performance.
Grade?
And I would grade. I think that this was always going to be a really decent World Championships because Tokyo had just done the Olympics. They got kind of a raw deal from having to do the COVID Olympics, but they had all of the systems in place to host a really big track meet, right? And also the Japanese are obsessed with running and obsessed with track and field. So you knew it was going to be high caliber. And I think the performances were really good. I would say I'm going to go B plus A minus. Because I think, and while there was a lot of sizzle, I think there were some stars missing, especially in the marathons. And I'm just not in love with world athletics, guys.
Yeah.
Well,
that shines through.
Yeah. We can see.
I'm just not in love with them.
A B plus and a half.
A B plus. There you go. I'll go B plus and a half. Okay. All that to say, though, it was super fun to cover and super fun to watch. And it looked like everyone was having a good time. And it was neat. So, moving on.
Moving on to the trail champs.
Pivoting back to the trail really quickly here. Trail World Championships. Let's get out the USA flags and let's start the chant. Katie Schide added to her resume as she's working on GOAT status. The American ultra runner. She won the women's event. And then Jim Walmsley, speaking of GOATs, he won the men's event and sort of like started to piece together a pretty good 2025, all things considered. I know he's had some injury issues and it's been a long year and a long road to recovery for him. So not super hotly contested were trail championships in Spain, but two good performances by two top tier athletes, which I think is a good thing for the sport. Let's move on.
I think the same thing happened here, Michael, that you're mentioning about more athletes in the World Championships in the marathon. The races kind of get diluted because, Katie Schide won by 25 minutes. And I think that's kind of a lot. Even though in trail you can win by these larger advantages, but I still think it's too much for a World Championship. But, there's all these other great races like how there are the marathon majors. And so that's what happens. Like your top athletes kind of get diluted into all of these races. And so then, sometimes it's a great close race and sometimes it's not. And in this case, at least on the women's side, it wasn't as close as it could have been, I think.
Yeah, it's tough to go up against UTMB coming just a few weeks beforehand, which is drawing all the major talent.
Right.
And you're only going to catch people like Schide and Jim Walmsley who either are just still recovering from a prior event like a Western States or something like that, or are coming off of an injury and aren't ready to tackle a 100-miler, right? Okay. Speaking of World Marathon majors, the Berlin Marathon took place in September.
Speaking of heat.
Speaking of warm days,
terrible hot
not
conditions.
Ideal circumstances to run a marathon. I think it's going to go down in history. I think the headline is Hot Berlin. I think everyone who ran that race should get a little positive asterisk next to their time where it's like, you got it done. That must have been awful. I'm going to throw a hot take out there, guys. Speaking of hot, the winner, Sebastian Sawe, 2:02:16. I think this is perhaps, besides Kelvin Kiptum's performance in Chicago in 2023, that is a world record. I think this is perhaps the second best marathon performance in history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a hot take, but it's one I'm willing to digest. Basically, he ran the Berlin Marathon roughly a minute slower than Eliud Kipchoge did when he had set the world record pre-Kiptum. Now, the question is that heat worth a minute? Conceivably so. Everyone I know, from people in the pro field to absolute beginners, were upset with their time in Berlin. maybe except for Harry Styles. He's like the one exception.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we'll get to
I mean,
that.
okay, wait a minute. I can't believe I led with Sebastian Sawe. How silly of me to
who's
talk about the second
Sebastian
greatest.
How
Sawe?
dare you?
Let's talk. Okay, Alex, you opened this can of worms. Let's talk about maybe the story of the year.
No. Oh, no. Yeah.
No.
So Harry Styles signing up for the Berlin Marathon under the pseudonym Stead Sarandos as a nod to the Netflix CEO, executive.
Ted Sarandos,
Ted-
for
Ted-
whatever reason. Don't know. We still don't know why, but
We're not sure. We thought it was meant to like signal a new movie from Styles, but I think we have yet to see this. I'm still kind of reeling from his marathon performance. Goes into this race wearing a long sleeve and what we've later identified to be a pair of alpha flies and drops a 2:59. What were the milliseconds here? We have it.
13, I think
2:59.13. So goes sub 3 in what appeared to be his second major marathon. He had also run Tokyo quite a bit slower, but we later found out that I think he was there pacing a friend. And I want to say we broke the story, but honestly, everyone broke the story at the same time, and the running world went crazy and immediately adopted Harry Styles as one of their own, because you can't bullshit a 3-hour marathon, even less
No.
while you're holding down a massive music career. So, Harry Styles, if you ever want to come on the pod and tell us how you did it,
we're
this is
here
your
for
open
you, man.
invitation.
And you know what I think? I think of all of the celebrity runners, the celebrities that have taken on the marathon, many of them New York in the past, Harry Styles is different. Harry Styles has now done Tokyo and he's done Berlin. So he's clearly interested in the World Marathon Majors. That's running sicko territory right there, as we like to say.
And he ran a sub 3.
He ran a sub 3. So he's training seriously.
Yes.
I bet you the guy's got Boston on his mind right now. I bet you he's got 6-star medal on his mind. He's obsessed with running, very clearly obsessed with running. And I think that, and he's also like all the gear he's wearing like a Tracksmith shorts, which I think like sold really well after it was revealed what shorts he was wearing. He had on super shoes, guys. This was maybe the biggest story in running in 2025.
In terms of training, we reported he trains under former British Special Forces operative turned professional fitness coach David Kipchoge. And
Yes.
one of his workouts was he would run like a 1-mile effort, and then he would do this body weight circuit of like 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and 100 air squats. But his personal best for the mile, apparently, at the time of writing, maybe he's beat this now, was 5:13.
In Harry Styles' Wikipedia article, there are sub-chapters, and the subheadings under his personal life are tattoos, relationships, and sexuality, and philanthropy and advocacy. And there is a little blurb about his marathon running. I feel like someone needs to go in there and just add a full subcategory of Harry Styles' marathon running. His marathon running exploits his career. We need to add more to this.
Get the man a world athletics profile. Come on.
All right. So that we should also note that Rosemary Wanjiru of Kenya won the women's race in 2:21:05, which is a good breakthrough for her as well. She's somebody who's been on the scene for quite a while now and has competed at a lot of the majors, and this is a nice win for her. But it definitely will, I think, resonate in our minds as like the year that Berlin was brutally hot, and the year that perhaps might create a bit of a discussion over whether or not placing your marathon in September is a great idea. Okay.
Or having it that late in the morning, 9 a.m.
Right.
That's right. They have a weird late start. Like start at 7 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get to brunch. Let's get to Oktoberfest. Like we can drink before noon in Germany, right? That's cool. That's all right. Okay. So let's move on to October. Let's pivot to our next World Marathon Major. Not all of us. Jessy was still nestled away in Europe. Alex Sear, Katelyn Tocci, and I covered the Chicago Marathon live and in person, where we got to see, I think, one of the other signature performances of the year in the marathon. Ugandan breakout star, the kid, Jacob Kiplimo. He went up head-to-head against John Career, who I'd say Kiplimo, Career, and Sawe are now emerging as the three guys on the men's side to really pay attention to in all the World Marathon Majors. And Kiplimo, this was just the first half of this race was crazy, guys. The first half of this race, they were running well under 2-hour marathon pace.
Yep.
It was wild. It was like, what are these guys doing? Like, I think they at one point paced like 156 pace or something like that for a 5K split. It was bananas.
I just remember Alex kept sending us, because Alex was sending us the information and all the splits compared to Kiptum, right? And so we were there reporting, and I was like, okay, he ran this segment and this much faster than Kiptum. This segment this much faster than Kiptum. We're like, oh my gosh, is this guy going to break 2 hours? Are they going to break the world record? It was like the first half, or even a little bit more, really felt like that.
And then they completely imploded, as opposed to Kiptum, who just got
the wheels
faster.
fell off.
Yeah, Career
one
drops
of them
out.
got tummy issues.
That's right.
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm.
So Career
John
drops
Career
out.
is human after all. Yes, his stomach flipped on him, unsurprisingly, because of perhaps the pace was too intense, and he dropped out at around 30 kilometers, just disappeared all of a sudden. Then it became Kiplimo's race to kind of hang on to, and he did. He ran 2:02:23 in the end. One of the fastest. I guess it was the second fastest performance of the year on the men's side overall in the marathon. And we should say, big hat tip to Howie Fesa of Ethiopia, who won the women's race in 2:15:57. Was it?
Yes.
At that point, the fastest women's performance of the year. She ran a chunk of the second half of this race by herself. There was a cool moment in this race that I remember distinctly where she starts looking at her watch, and it was like she was late for a meeting or something, and she just like kind of picked it up with a couple of kilometers to go. And I think that was because she really wanted to get under that time, right? She really wanted to run in the 2:15s, and run one of the great marathon performances of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Takeaway from Chicago, real quick, because Alex, Katelyn, we were both there covering it on the ground. Do you have a lingering memory from Chicago?
One, I think Chicago has the opportunity to become labeled as the fast major now that Berlin has faltered a little bit. I think on paper the results were a little disappointing, because for that to happen on the men's side needed a 2:01, and the women's side is more complicated because of Chepengedich and what we now see as fast for a women's marathon. So I'm kind of stumped in this sense. I think how we see women's marathoning has to be readjusted in the next couple years, and because of Chepengedich, it's become easier to like assess a course based on the men's time, because we haven't had a runaway doper drop a 1:57 in the last couple of years. But
Yeah.
I think Chicago's blueprint was correct. They summoned two of the big guns, the three that Michael mentioned. I would add Benson Kipruto to that list, just for the record as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Thank you.
the next race that attempts to have a world record needs to summon not one, but two of these big guns. And I would love to see one of the fast races, maybe Chicago next year, to get Career back, to get Kiplimo, to get Sawe, to get Kipruto, and just have a mano thing happen. And I think Chicago this year had the right idea with that. The performances just weren't there.
Well, that's what happens when you run like 1:55 pace to open the race. That's going to create
Honestly,
bit of
that's
chaos.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, we could have led the Chicago talk with this, but Conner Mantz runs an American/North American record in Chicago. It was super hyped. He basically stated from the onset of the year that he was going to go after it. He starts the year off, we mentioned in part one, by running the half marathon record in Houston, and dusted our boy Alex Sear in the process by many minutes. He wasn't even at the finish line when Alex eventually finished. It was that fast. But Conner Mantz just absolutely crushes, finishes 4th place yet again, just off the podium. It
like
would have been
Boston.
like the perfect fairy tale ending if he would have got on the podium as well,
Yep.
wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
And he runs. I'm trying to find the time. I can't find it.
Oh,
off the-
2:04:43.
4:43.
2:04:43. A time that I should know off the top of my head. A time that I promise in 2026 and beyond will be burned into my mind, unless he or someone else goes and runs faster than that in the springtime. Was this the performance? Did this performance outshine Jacob Kiplimo's win, or how he faces win? And was this the marathon performance of the year overall? I already feel like I know Jessy's answer because of your athlete of the year takes. Katelyn, was this performance of the year from the marathon?
This is tricky because I also chose Conner Mantz as athlete of the year, and I've got
Yes, you did.
lot of backlash on that.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did, because I took all of his accomplishments from the year. I took the half marathon record of 59:17 American record. I took the American and North American marathon record. I think he won the 20K championships this year, which he broke another another record. So anyway, he's breaking records the entire year. So yes, I did, but marathon performance alone, probably not. We're probably going to have to choose either Sawe in Berlin or someone like that. So I would say the marathon performance, if I take that out and I just evaluate marathon performances, probably not, because I'm probably going to choose Sebastian Sawe in Berlin or one of the other fastest times of the year. But all around, that was a different story.
Yeah, I agree with Katelyn. I don't think that Conner Mantz had the marathon performance of the year. I think from an objective performance standpoint, that easily goes to Sawe. But if you look at it from an overarching whole year perspective, it doesn't really get much better than Conner Mantz. Like, from his performances, his marathon record, his half marathon record, his 20K record, he set a course record at Beach to Beacon, just to add to that. And I mean, then to top it off, it was adorable, and he paced his wife to a big win in her debut marathon, just to top it off. But what he did for the sport. So from an overarching standpoint, that's why he was my athlete of the year. But from a marathon one performance of the year, no. From a marathon performance, that's Sebastian Sawe. He tops the list, of course.
Yeah. To me, I agree with what you both said. To me, his 2:04 meant something more than just a 2:04 on paper. People get weird talking about this, but this actually factors into how we consume marathons, especially on the Western side of the world. There's a massive divide between what the East Africans can run and what the American and Canadian athletes and even European athletes can run, to the point where when we consume marathons, there are two races in our minds. Who won the East African race? And then 3 or 4 minutes later, who won the race from the rest of the world? Conner Mantz's 2:04 showed that we can bridge that gap and make it just one race. And that's more exciting. It's not fun to watch a race when you already know who's going to win. The fact that we were talking to some of the East African athletes and that they had Conner Mantz in mind as an athlete to look out for and an athlete to watch for is huge. And this signals something to the people who live and train not in the Rift Valley, not at altitude, not in East Africa, that maybe in 5-10 years, there could be more American 2:04s. There could be more British 2:04s. And I think that is good for the sport moving forward. So
Absolutely.
I don't think it was the marathon performance of the year. You can't overlook Sawe. I agree. Kiplimo, we got to talk about Kiplimo's half. That's not a marathon, but still, that might be the best distance running performance in history. But Conner Mantz's 2:04 meant something important.
Totally agree with that. Before
100%.
the race, in the media conference room area, talking to the athletes, I chatted with a Kenyan runner, Cyprian Katut, who is, one of the better marathon runners in the world. That A-class of marathon runner.
Sorry to cut you off. Who outpaced Mantz for that podium in Boston? Right? He got Mantz by barely, like a tiny bit.
And he was the one who said to me, like I didn't even tee it up. I was just like, who are the main contenders in the field that you're eyeing here in this race in Chicago? And he listed off John Career, he listed off Jacob Kiplimo, of course, and he was like Conner Mantz. And then he said, in the Rift Valley, we take Conner Mantz very seriously now as a contender in a major when we're racing against him. He is a guy. So I think that's neat. Okay. Oh, I forgot to share this with you guys. I've got a source. I've got a little privileged information that I'll drop in here almost an hour into this podcast. I saw a source told me, a little birdie told me that Sebastian Sawe is pretty much all but confirmed to run Berlin next year. So we're not going to see Sebastian Sawe at Chicago, I don't think.
Okay.
So we'll see him return to Berlin. That's what I was told. I was told that it's pretty much already a done deal that he's going to show up at Berlin next year, which would make a lot of sense. So he had a lot of success there, right? And also that's the Kipchoge blueprint, right? London in the spring, Berlin in the fall, attack super fast times on super fast courses. He's probably just hoping that it's not a warm race again this year.
Fingers crossed.
Okay. Oh, Katelyn, what's your big takeaway? What's your Chicago takeaway before we
I think that once we got to Chicago, what I realized is that we are now starting to see really fast runners again. And I think I mentioned this when we did the first half of the podcast, and this is where it really it nailed that in for me. That last year when we were talking about it, we were like, okay, after Kiptum, who can be our next Kiptum? Who can be the next person? And now, finally, as Alex mentioned, we're getting that group. And that group really came together for me in Chicago. Even though the wheels fell off, you know that the speed is there and that the guys are there, those 4 guys that Alex mentioned. Like, we're finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and hope that now we're going to hope where maybe next year we'll see a world record. Maybe next year we'll finally see the sub 2, and we now have that group of guys. And Chicago was the race that made me feel like, okay, now we've got this little group, and so I think we're going to see some big stuff next year.
Okay, so my one takeaway: World Marathon majors are getting too big. They're just getting too big. There's too many people on the course. They're too crowded. We're starting to hear complaints from our people, from our audience, the recreational runner out there like ourselves, who's just like, maybe this isn't as an amazing experience as it was 5 years ago when it was a little bit of a smaller race. But also it's still kind of a neat experience to be part of a 50,000 plus person race. But there's definitely going to be trade-offs when you're running in these huge races, especially middle of the pack. You're going to find yourself pretty crowded in for the entire race. So that's something to be mindful of. Curious to see where this goes. Do these races just keep trying to grow and grow?
The majors have been commodified.
Oh, you betcha they've been commodified.
They're just a hot commodity now.
They are indeed. Okay, back to purity. Let's go back into the mountains in October.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Kilian did something awesome this year.
This is
Kilian Jornet. Yes.
Let's talk about Kilian. Kilian decided to do something crazy this year.
Yeah,
he decided.
Kilian
Jornet, just the GOAT. Decided, I'll give the story on this one. He decided that he was going to take 31 days and completely human powered. So he was either going to be running, hiking, climbing, biking, the 72 accessible 14ers, as they call them, in the lower 48. So he was going to climb those 72 peaks in the least amount of time possible that he could. So he traveled more than 5,000 kilometers to do that, either by foot or biking or climbing, and over, ready for this, 250,000 vertical feet. Okay, so he just did one of his huge Kilian-esque expeditions, and I love it because he's like, well, he's probably thinking, even though I don't feel like I feel like he's a lot humbler than this, but I think of him, he's like, well, I've won every trail race known to man. I've done it all. Let me find the hardest things that I could possibly do. What could be more impressive? And so he keeps finding these amazing expeditions, these amazing challenges, and he just comes out finishing these super awesome things and continues to be a huge inspiration for everyone who likes to do crazy stuff.
Good God. When I have a free month, I learn how to make sourdough bread, which is what my friends
Duolingo.
Say. Duolingo.
You know?
Duolingo.
I have a friend who learned violin in a month, like the first month of COVID, and that was still the most ambitious venture I had heard anyone go on in 31 days. So yeah, this beats it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, some people struggle to not drink a beer in 31 days. Kilian Jornet is like, you know what? Hold my beer. I'm going to run.
Do you think he had 14, a beer?
I'm going to do 14,000 foot peaks for just a month straight. Let's go and do that.
How much must he need to consume, like food?
Calories? Nuts.
Can you imagine?
Just nuts.
Cool. He only wore 2 pairs of shoes during it as well.
Yeah, that's a weird little factoid that you pulled from that, Jessy.
The normal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just
2 pairs.
We saw those shoes. Jessy and I saw Kilian's used shoes on that trek when we were in TRE.
We did.
Yep. We saw them. They were in a glass box, and these were the shoes that Kilian used to do that trek. We saw them.
Did you? What
trophy.
shape were they in?
They were worn, but to have 2,500 kilometers on them. No. I mean, he didn't run that, but I mean, they were used, but hey, they looked pretty good.
I love how shoes are sort of have become religious artifacts now. You know, it's like we saw a lot of like entombed shoes at the running event this year. They also had Tom Evans' UTMB winning shoe at the ASICS booth, which was cool to see. Yes, they've become like almost like religious artifacts. There's like some sort of special magical power contained within them. So that, I mean, I don't know. That's probably the most impressive endurance sports performance of the year, of the decade, of all time. I'm not sure. It's hard to evaluate something like that. And it makes Kilian Jornet's 3rd place finish at Western States earlier in the summer look like he was just like warming up for this or something. Like he was like
totally.
He was just like out doing a workout to prepare himself for this. Just bananas, just an appalling thing. This is a fun little one while we'll stay in Ultraville. Courtney Dauwalter, ultra legend. She just decides to run a marathon. She's just like, you know what? Let's go back to the road. Yeah, we'll pair these together. So she did 2 marathons this fall, kind of out of nowhere. I thought it was a really fun story. We're actually working on setting up, hopefully this comes to be, but we're working on setting up an interview with her to talk about all of this. And so stay tuned in the podcast feed. You'll eventually, hopefully, we'll drop an interview with Courtney about this. So first marathon in 13 years. She hits the roads. She had run marathons previous to becoming a celebrated ultra trail runner. She had dabbled in road running, and she ran when she was younger on the track as well, I believe, in cross country. And she ran 2:49:54 at Twin Cities Marathon, kind of her hometown race to a certain degree. And then she went and ran the California International Marathon in the beginning of December, made a huge jump, ran 2:38:55.
That's insane.
Okay. Held on with the U.S. Olympic trials qualifying time, I believe, is 2:37.
7. Yeah, it was just 2 minutes, just about 2 minutes over that time. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
She held on with this pack of women who were trying to run that qualification time at CIM. And she held on for a good long while, I think around 20 miles. And so, I mean, I can't wait to ask her this question. I want to know. I want to find out what her thinking is here. What's the plan?
Yeah, I need to know.
Does she want to run the U.S. Olympic trials?
Here's the Olympic story. She runs the Olympic trials. She goes to the Olympics. medals at the Olympics, like Molly Seidel. It's going to be another Molly Seidel story where the underdog comes out, wins a medal.
I mean,
that's my Olympics prediction. I'm calling it. You heard it here first.
I will
Courtney
bet you
Dauwalter.
all
that's the boldest
the
of
money
bold predictions.
in my bank account, Jessy. I will bet you all the money in my bank account.
That does
You heard
not
it here?
happen.
That doesn't happen.
Well, I am just
What-
dreaming big.
Are you hesitating? What's wrong? What is it?
No. Courtney Dauwalter will qualify for the Olympics, and then it'll be, like a Molly Seidel story.
Okay, meet
All
me on
right.
Polymarket, Jessy. We're going to talk about this.
This is just getting weird.
Okay.
If you're playing along at home, listening to this or watching this in the YouTube comments or on Spotify, you can comment as well, and you can real time comment. I'm curious to hear what our audience thinks about this. I'm leaning on Team Alex on this one here. I don't think there's a hope in hell that she ever qualifies for the Olympics, but I think it's a fun story nevertheless. Do you guys think that she'll run
An
the U.S.
underdog story.
Here's what I do want to know from each of you. Do you think she's going to run the U.S. Olympic Trials qualifier? And if she does, do you think she'll run the U.S. Olympic Trials?
I think she
Yes
will.
and yes.
Yeah, yes and yes. I think that she'll do both because, we just saw she ran this first marathon in 13 years. In another month later, a couple of months later, she dropped over 10 minutes. So she's probably not at her full potential quite yet. She trains another 6 months, drops it another couple of minutes. In my eyes, maybe I'm a little biased, Courtney Dauwalter can do anything. Look at that time, 2:38:55. I think if she works another 6 months on it, or I don't know, just does it in another year, and next fall goes back to CIM. Come on, Courtney, I'm running CIM. Come to CIM. And then, I think that she will qualify. She will participate. And that would be just amazing. It would be just another amazing thing that Courtney Dauwalter can do. Imagine. Trail legend, ultra trail goat, and then and also I just went to the Olympic trials. So she's incredible. I do think it will happen. She'll go.
I don't think Michael Jordan ever should have played baseball, but looking back, it added to his legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Why leave a sport where you're the best to join another sport where you're sub-elite at best?
Good comp.
Okay.
I have no idea, but these people, the Dauwalters, the Jordans, they think differently than the rest of us. And I think she's setting herself a challenge. I agree. I'm totally if she does it, very cool. I don't think she will. I had a conversation with Ben Blankenship at the Mount to Coast booth at the running event 2 weeks ago. U.S. Olympian, the 1500 meters, now exploring the world of ultras. And I asked him, how much overlap is there from the 1500? And he didn't even let me finish my sentence. He said, there's no overlap.
You went from 1,500 to 100 miles, right?
Yes, yes.
There's nothing.
Yes, yeah. And a marathon would probably translate more to trail than a 1,500 meter run on a track would. But he was like, I've spent so much time walking. These are two different sports. And this is exactly how I feel between Courtney's trail career and elite marathoning. They're two different sports. And I'm in it for the experimentation, but I don't think her ascent will be as smooth as most people think.
Well, you know what, Alex? Do you know what is also part of it? This is like a Kilian Jornet. Once you're the absolute best, Courtney won Hard Rock, Western States, and UTMB all in the same year. She got first place. She has so many course records. She needs another challenge. She's already beaten everybody. She's already been
bored.
the unbeatable. Exactly. Why not switch it up and do something else? Because she's already won absolutely everything there is to win in the trail world. So I can see why she wants another challenge. Because what do? What do I do? Go back to Western States and win again? Or go back to UTMB and win again? Yeah, it's cool. But why not experiment with something different and, just try something else after you've done it all. It's a Kilian thing.
Totally.
I guess I should add my 2 cents here to what I think she does. I think she does qualify for the U.S. Olympic trials. I think she does it purposefully. I think she targets a race maybe next spring or fall and runs it and does some focused marathon training leading up to it. And then I think she does eventually run the U.S. Olympic trials because Solomon, her sponsor, her longtime sponsor, has been trying to edge its way into the road running world more and more. And they have I think a pretty decent lineup of road running shoes at this stage. They had some success there. The men's winner at California International Marathon was wearing Salomon shoes as well as a Salomon athlete. So, and I think that, it's not going to hurt their sponsor because she's going to get an outsized amount of attention at the U.S. Olympic trials in terms of there will be stories on her if she makes the trials, even if she finishes 75th place. She'll get so much more attention than everybody but perhaps
the winners.
The winners. Exactly.
Unless she is the winner.
Okay, Jessy.
Jessy, once
I
again,
love a hot take.
I will meet you on Polymarket later today.
I love it. I love it. We're almost done. We're almost up to present day here.
All right.
But it feels like 100 years ago that we were at the New York City Marathon. The New York City Marathon felt like the biggest marathon in the world because, spoiler alert, it was. I think off the top here, let's talk about how the New York City Marathon became the biggest race in history yet again. It's like every year you wait for the finisher tally to come out the next day or so afterwards. There were 59,226 finishers. That's just shy of 60,000 people. It's totally nuts. And it's the largest marathon in history by finisher performance. The attrition rate, I emailed the PR people at the New York Roadrunners afterwards because I don't have the data in front of me, but the attrition rate was so small because I wanted to know how many entrants there were. Because I was like, surely if there were almost 60,000 finishers, there would be 70,000 entrants or something like that. No, it was less than 1,000 people dropped out of the race, which is crazy.
Wow.
Which is absolutely crazy. And really low attrition rates, like single digit attrition rates percentage wise. So New York just signaled how massive the running boom is right now, how basically the sky is the limit for how big you can make a world marathon major like New York. And the race itself was pretty spectacular. In the elite fields, we've talked earlier about the great rivalry between Helen Obiri and Sharon Lokedi, two Kenyan women who are also live and train and have lived and trained in the United States for a long time. So really familiar in the American running circuits as well. They've competed against each other fiercely in Boston and New York in the past. Based on the press conference after the fact, doesn't seem like they liked each other very much.
It's very unlike the Chapet and Kipchoge. The relationship seems a little different.
There was, super dramatic race to watch. They were running side by side. Obiri got the best of Lokedi this time around with a furious sprint with like a mile and change to go. She breaks the course record, becomes the first woman to ever run under 2:20 in New York, runs 2:19:51. On the men's side, we had pretty exciting performance as well, where it was like a sprint to the finish, the very end. And Benson Kipruto, your boy, Katelyn,
yep,
he came out with the victory, with the big V, 2:08:09. Benson Kipruto, I think there's a case to be made that this guy is on the Mount Rushmore of marathon performers on the men's side.
There. He's
won Boston, Chicago, Tokyo, and now New York as well. Mm-hmm. So he's won four of the world marathon majors.
He's more than halfway there to get them all.
Bold prediction.
Yeah, that's my hot take. He's going to do it.
He runs Sydney, I bet you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he runs Sydney next in 2026. Big takeaway from New York from each of you. What's the big snapshot? Jessy, we'll start with you. Jessy, what was the big, for you, the kind of lingering memory from New York?
We had Kipchoge.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Eliud Kipchoge.
Such a storied career, held the world record, has now also become the fastest 6-star finisher with a 2:05:46 average. And this was his final it was such like almost like a peaceful closing, like coming full circle, running in New York the first time. Now he didn't win, but it was just such a, a ceremonial moment almost when he crossed the finish line. It's like he knew, everyone knew, it was celebrated. It was just, like we said, one of those sport moments where you take a minute to realize what he's done for marathoning. And I mean, what he continues to do, because yes, he's stepping away from elite racing, but he's still doing so much for, the community and the sport. And that was also when he announced his kind of Eliud Kipchoge world tour, where he has the goal to run a marathon on each of the continents over the next 2 years. But yeah, I think it's just, that's just beyond the results, beyond the winner stories. That's what sticks out to me, because yeah, it's just a moment where as he's waving to everyone and he crosses the finish line in his super drifty Nike shirt. And you just take a minute to realize, like, wow, this one guy did a lot in his career. And I think we, in recent years, we kind of like sat back and we'd be like, oh, Eliud Kipchoge, like DNF tier, or oh, he's not running as well as he used to. But like, the guy did a lot and moved the sport forward a lot, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, this was like this was the swan song. This was the final performance in the farewell tour that was 2025 for Eliud Kipchoge. He ran in London and then Sydney, and then it's like, he had to do New York because otherwise he was going to have to leave it for 2026, and that just probably felt like an eternity away for him. So it's like, all right, going to have to run another one. And there was so much hype around him in New York, and rightfully so, just the absolute most important marathon runner culturally, performance-wise, in history. And now he's going to like sail off into the sunset and go run marathons in Antarctica and whatnot. So
yeah. I
Sierra,
think it just gives you a minute to think about everything, the impact he had.
Mr. Sear, what was your lingering takeaway? We spent like a week in New York.
Felt like it.
Don't rely on the Port Authority bus terminal.
Oh yes,
to be accurate. No,
that was brutal.
That was brutal. Let me give a useful takeaway. We've already talked about Kipchoge. We've already talked about races getting bigger. We've already talked about sprint finishes in the majors. So I'm gonna pick on something that's a little bit inside baseball, but I think it's a bit valuable to say, because we've just talked about Sydney and how it's important that they market their race well. And in becoming a big major, you need to be good at branding yourself. I think there's a marathon out there that could deliver a masterclass in doing that, and that's the New York City Marathon. And I'll give 2 examples. The main one being, for us, things are very easy as media members. Every race usually makes their elite athletes available before the race so that we can shoot content with them, whether that's on video. Some people go and they write articles, and that's how the story of the race gets told. Sometimes these periods are very short. Sometimes you don't have access to many of the athletes. This year was awesome. There were 2 rounds. The first round was just us gathering around Eliud Kipchoge and Sifan Hassan, and we had so much time to talk to them, ask them questions, take videos, and it really added to the storytelling of the race. I had so much time with Eliud Kipchoge that at one point I had no more questions to ask him. And he said, all right then. And he walked off. And Thomas, our founder, looked at me and said, well, shit, I think you're the first guy to ever exhaust Eliud Kipchoge. And I was like, I guess you're right. And then after that, all the other athletes came up. We had time to talk to them. That was very neat. And then the second thing is the New York Roadrunners, the organization that puts the marathon up, has managed to do something that clearly the Boston Athletics Association that runs the Boston Marathon has not been able to do. They run a coherent race expo. In Boston, Adidas has taken over the thing, and other brands are kind of off to their own devices, picking houses on Newbury Street, doing their own pop-ups, which also works perfectly, but that is a symptom of, I think, an expo gone wrong. They've made lemonade out of those lemons. In New York City, the expo is awesome. You go there and you get to see pretty much everything that the race is about. Several brands have booths. New Balance, which is the title brand sponsor of the New York City Marathon, doesn't seem to be too greedy with expo space. And so they share the spots with Hoka, Brooks, Adidas, all these brands are there. And it actually creates a really cool atmosphere before and, I guess in the days before the race. So, Sydney, if you're taking notes, I think try to model your race by the New York City Marathon, because it's very good at telling its own story.
Good one. Very good. The expo was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
And it gave, like, just when you thought expos were dead, it was like, oh, this is actually a pretty good quality expo and a good experience and worth wandering around in and getting lost in the day before the marathon. Katelyn, what's your big takeaway from New York?
I'm going to go a step further because Alex took mine, but it's fine.
I thought I was going so niche. Sorry.
No, mine was absolutely the athlete availability, but I'm going to say why. Yeah. Maybe it's very personal. It was maybe because I haven't been exposed to those sorts of things before. And the other press conferences that I've been to this year, it was, like you said, a few of the athletes line up, they answer 2 questions and then they're done. This athlete availability, not only were we able, we were videoing our interview with Eliud Kipchoge. That was incredible. But after the fact, it's almost like I felt like maybe a lot of these journalists, they're used to this. They come in, they have a little notepad, they ask very generic questions. They take their footage and then they leave because that's what they have to do. I waited. The journalists were done. The other journalists were done with all of their stuff. And I took off camera time and I got to sit down with Benson Kipruto for 10 minutes and talk about his life at home. And it was all of these really special moments that, I spoke with Sharon Lokedi. I got to speak to all of these people off camera, asking them different questions about them and not about running. So I took this information and I wrote an article about it and I published it. And never on the site had I published an article that I got personal emails from in response to it saying this inspired me so much. These athletes, they're just like us. Because what I did is it made us, we got to see inside these athletes as not just runners. They're not just times. They're not just, they have so many insecurities like we do about running. They have the same types of problems. And it was amazing that I got this great response from the public, wow, this was really great. I was able to identify with Sifan Hassan and what she said about this. And so that moment was really special for me about New York. And thank you to the New York City Marathon to give me the opportunity to be able to speak with these athletes in that sort of an environment where they weren't rushed. And, and we were able to have those special moments. So I think that helped a lot, not just to me, but I was able to communicate that to our entire audience. And I think that, we got something really special from it.
Yeah. At the end of the day, elite athletes are just like us. They poop as well.
Had to bring up the poop.
Jesus, man. We haven't talked about poop in a few episodes.
We've been really good. Yeah, we've been really done well.
Yeah. So, I echo that statement as well. I feel like there's nothing I don't know about Sifan Hassan at this point after that press conference. Is man, she's the most exquisite oversharer in the history of sports.
Yeah, she's amazing.
At one point, she was just deep, we're talking 30 minutes into availability. She's yeah, there's I don't remember which race it was. Maybe it was London. It was one of my first marathons. And I went to the start line and I just remember staying at the start line and thinking to myself, please God, please make it just thunder and lightning so that this race gets canceled right now. Cause I don't want to run this right now.
She's such a character.
And then she's and then I started running and then I started looking for potholes and I was I could just trip in one of these and my race will be done. I don't have to run this thing anymore. So it's oh, that's very relatable. Very, very relatable.
She is.
Okay, really quick. Also in November, enhanced games, the steroid Olympics. So WADA was trying to put pressure on USADA, the U.S. anti-doping group, to stop the enhanced games. So the enhanced games are this private company, this concept. I believe Donald Trump Jr.'s fund is invested in it. This kind of sketchy organization that's trying to set up basically a games or a series of events that will allow its athletes to race unencumbered from the draconian imposition of having to not do steroids or any other performance enhancing drugs. It turns out it's like maybe kind of a gimmick to try to sell like a testosterone and HGH style kind of supplement stack to middle-aged bros. And yeah, where this is going to go, TBD. There's a big mess. Enhanced Games had sued WADA at one point, I believe, for some sort of like defamation. That lawsuit got thrown out. Anyway, that was just like a messy, weird story that I think has sort of come to a head. I know that the one of the founders has taken a step back and is doing different things now. Will the Enhanced Games ever take hold? Who knows?
What do you guys think about this concept? I mean, I know this could be a whole nother podcast, but we've never spoken about this on the pod.
I wrote a whole article about this earlier this year. I've been thinking about this a lot. At one point, I was about to go to wherever it was going to be. At some point, it was going to be in Australia, and I'm like, I'm going to go watch this, kind of hate watch this thing, and I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's a flop. My main takeaway from it is that it is similar to Grand Slam in that it is a battle cry, or it's a sign. It's a canary in the coal mine showing that something is wrong. There is an appetite for a type of sports, athletics, where there's money in the game. And I think if World Athletics did its job, there would not be this Enhanced Games outgrowth. The doping thing is a weird differentiation. And I think that if there was money in World Athletics, actual really good athletes like Fred Curley would not sign with the Enhanced Games, and the concept would be dead in the water. But alas, that's not the case. Curley still needs to make money. And so it's going to happen with the weird fringe of athletes who'll keep it alive.
It's going to attract disgraced athletes or athletes that are clearly having some financial issues and are willing to take this huge reputational hit in order for a quick payday. And I agree with you, Alex. I don't think it goes anywhere from here.
I think it's really similar to Grand Slam in that it's talk in the big game, but I think it's going to have a really hard time fully panning out. Like right now, they have barely 12 athletes signed on. Most of them are swimmers. They had a few track athletes, but I think people are more scared, like athletes are more scared about it than we think. Like, because I think everyone does realize, like, if you sign with them, you're not going to be competing in a normal sport competition again, because everyone will know that
That's
you're
right.
like doping.
Or the perception. Yeah.
Yeah, I think at first people were almost a bit excited about it. Like, oh, we're going to see really what does doping do to someone? Like how much better does it really make you? Like, we can compare this to, normal competition. But then I think when it gets down to it, when it gets down to the nitty gritty, when it gets down to actually moving forward for real, I think no one's really raising their hand, especially with federations almost like threatening their athletes. Like World Aquatics, for example, has essentially said if any athlete, coach, like sort of staff member, a doctor or official participates in this, like you're done. You're not welcome to any World Aquatic sanctioned event again, because we know you're involved in this. You're involved in doping. So I think people are finally kind of taking in that this will forever change their careers, the trajectory of their careers, and it's something they can't come back from. And if it flops, then where are you left with?
So, last event, tent pole of 2025, at least for now, until we see somebody run a world record in a Santa suit or something like that in the next week or so. The Valencia Marathon. So, Jessy,
Yeah,
you got the privilege of pouring yourself into a couple of airplanes, leaving San Antonio, Texas, leaving all of us at the running event, and then making your way to Valencia, Spain to cover the Valencia Marathon. A really nice way to finish off the year in marathoning, might I add. So Jocelyn Jepkosgei, who hadn't had a big performance, a big win in quite a few years, she wins Valencia. She establishes Valencia as just a smoking hot fast course. She runs 2:14.00, fastest time in the marathon on the women's side in 2025, fourth fastest marathon in history, and of course, a course record in Valencia. She beats out the aforementioned Perez Jepchirchir, who is coming off a pretty spectacular year, having won the World Championship gold medal in the marathon in September. She hung on for second place, 2:14.43, which is the second fastest race performance of 2025, and the sixth fastest marathon in women's history. On the men's side, the aforementioned John Career, who DNF'd in Chicago. He ran a revenge race, and he is like the rest of us. He ran a revenge race in Valencia. He ran 2:02.24. Puts him top 10, puts him 8th fastest marathon in history. And the sub-3 finisher storyline that Jessy, you broke down for us when we did our Valencia reaction podcast is just totally crazy how many sub-3 hour marathon runners there were in Valencia. That, I mean, maybe was the big number of that race.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. They had over 5,500 sub-3 hour finishers, which was 18 and a bit % of the starters.
Crazy.
And
Wow.
compared to Boston, which albeit is a tougher course, but does require that qualification time to get in. It's not just an open race. Had 16%. It was 2,800 and change runners who ran sub-3. So I think that's just super impressive for an open race. I mean, now actually Valencia is turning to a ballot system. So this is its final year as an open race. Just you can kind of see that demand going up and up as people realize it is a really fast course if you want to run a PB. So, but it was such an amazing experience. I talked about this on the Instant Reaction podcast as well, but the vibe was super awesome. The Spanish were super passionate about their race. And yeah, like I mentioned on the podcast as well, there's Madrid, there's Barcelona, and then 5 or so hours from both of those is Valencia. So it's super far from these big cities. And it's kind of like the biggest city around in this southern area of Spain. And, you know, to have an event that is so big and with so many big names that come to it, the Spanish people just get super prideful and super passionate about that. And to see them lining the streets, you know, at the finish, you have the grandstands that are full. You have people on this overarching bridge just cheering everyone on. So it's just super nice to see, you know, it's a very community driven event and they're very prideful about that. So it was a super fun experience. And yeah, you see some really great performances there. So
Parting question about Valencia as we wrap this megapod 2-parter up.
yeah.
Alex, Katelyn, do you think Valencia should be a World Marathon major? Yes or no?
Yes, and they're going to decline it. They're going to stay and do their own thing.
Good.
I'm good.
Agreed. Yes.
I can't remember what I said, Jessy. I don't want to contradict myself. What did I say in our Instant Reaction podcast?
I remember exactly what I said. I said, nope, they should not be a major because they do what they do so well. And them being kind of like, compared to the majors, like a small but still big event, big event in a small community, it does not need to be commodified. It is doing really great the way it is. And
They're going to a lottery. That's a step. It's a first step.
I know,
the first
but
step, the slippery slope to majordom.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think if they were to go to a major, it would just become so overly commodified. And yeah, it does have that small community race feel that is like just that passion, that drive. It's such a big race. The Spanish runners, it's super dominated by the Spanish, and it is just such like it has that hometown race feel while being still such a big event with big races, big performances, big numbers coming out of it. And I think that's what makes it special. And I think if they become a major, that just takes away from the quality of the marathon, and it will become commodified. And I don't really want to see that because, yeah, it's such a successful big race with a small town feel.
Keep Valencia pure and
it's pure and
independent.
soulful.
There we go.
Pure and soulful.
A massive independent race. Okay. We did it, guys. We got through the entire year, 2025. Oh, man. So much happened this year. Just lightning round really quick. Short answer. What do you think the biggest story in running was this year? Katelyn, what's your biggest story in running? Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot here.
Oh, it's so hard. Oh, God.
Single biggest story.
Okay, I'm going to go back to what I said about what Conner Mantz has brought to the marathon community, to the running community in general. And he has just given this hope and aspiration to everyone being like, yes, we can run these times. I'm going to say he was a great inspiration to the running world this year.
Jessy.
The biggest story, I have two answers so clear in the air. I think the biggest story was everything surrounding Ruth Chepngetich. I think that was massive, a massive hit to the running world. But on a positive note, I want to look at the biggest spotlight. I think I'm going to give it to Harry Styles. I think it's fun. I think it's a good performance. I can't wait to see him more in 2026. I can't wait till he runs Boston or something like that. I think he's, it's a celebrity and he's actually running a quality marathon. So I can't wait to see more of it. Yeah, it hit every kind of running platform. I think it was fun. It was awesome. And it's a nice non-elite story, we always hear so much about the elites that it's nice to have a big but high quality non-elite story. So yeah, more of Harry Styles in 2026.
And not only do you always hear about the elites, you always hear those stories about who the last place finisher at the New York City Marathon was. And I think we've heard enough of those stories. So I'm piggybacking on you, Jessy. Harry Styles is a story of the year, not only because he showed that it's cool to run, but he showed that it's cool to run fast and test your limits. That's a fun thing. Whether your limit sits at a 5-hour marathon or a 2-hour marathon, go and get it. And that's what Harry Styles did. That's my story 2025.
Nice.
Just do your dang best.
Yeah, Jessy, I think Ruth Chepngetich is probably the story of the year, and she didn't even run a race this year, but the scandal, it's just this ugly moment where the curtain is pulled back, right?
And I think the reason why for me it's still so big is because her world record still stands. I think that's just what leaves that taste in your mouth, and it can't get the story out of my head because it's not erased from history. It still sits at number 1 on the World Athletics site.
That's right.
And until that's gone, it leaves a sour taste in my mouth. But I think the shining light through that was Harry Styles.
Harry Styles, our
who knew?
Our knight in shining armor comes riding in to save us all.
Our knight in tracksmith.
Our knight in tracksmith armor. I am looking forward to him trying to qualify for Boston at the London Marathon this spring. I'm looking forward to what his pseudonym, what his alias is going to be. Let's get creative, Harry. Let's go maybe referencing a past great runner.
Eliud Kipchoge, and he shows up with sick clothes.
That's right.
Look at his drippy shirt, his drippy Nike shirt.
That's right. I'm looking forward to his inevitable dabbling with a trail ultra at some point where he has his ultra phase. Yes, I'm looking forward to like Harry Styles doing some sort of weird press junket for a movie at some point in 2026 where the interviewer, all he wants to do is talk about his marathon training with the interviewer. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Speaking of someone running a trail race, I want to see Eliud Kipchoge run a trail race.
He told me that is his future.
He said
but
this.
I want to see.
He said this to me.
He said that he would.
I want to see Eliud Kipchoge go into ultras.
All right. Until then, we will put pause on this discussion of Eliud Kipchoge and Harry Styles' future of running 100-milers in the woods. Gang, we're going to maintain a schedule. Full disclosure, we're going to pre-record a couple of podcasts over the holiday break so that we all can rest a little bit and hang out with our families instead of weirdly enough, the next 2 Thursdays fall on Christmas Day and I believe New Year's Day.
New Year's Day.
So
yes.
We might drop the podcast next week and the week after, the day before, just so, you don't have to sneak away and spend 90 minutes listening to us, or you can save it on Christmas Day and use this as an excuse to ignore your family, whatever you want to do. So we might be dropping the pods on Wednesday instead of Thursday the next 2 weeks. TBD on that one, but there will be podcasts coming out in the feed from us if you want to listen to us. Runners don't stop running during the holidays. You guys,
no.
Who here runs on Christmas Day? Who of us has run on Christmas Day before?
It's the one day I won't run. I'll run on Christmas Eve and I will not run on Christmas Day. It's the one day I give myself.
For a hike on Christmas Day.
There you go.
I am negotiating with my coach for him to not put a double threshold day on Christmas because I feel like that's sacrilegious somehow.
That's not nice.
Christmas week will be my main training week heading into the Houston half marathon.
The Houston half marathon.
Wow.
That's
why you don't want to choose that marathon.
Wow.
It is the big drawback of running Houston.
Yes,
so
it is.
I will be running on Christmas Day and as fast as I can.
I'm not sure if I'll be running on Christmas Day. I might. I have in the past. I've also taken the day off. We'll see how I feel on Christmas morning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys.
All right. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Early.
Happy New Year. Happy Hanukkah to everyone as well. And all of the other great, joyous holidays that happen to fall in the winter solstice. Subscribe to our newsletter if you don't already. It goes out every day of the week. You can find a link in the show notes and the description on YouTube as well. And give us a review and give us a follow on YouTube as well. What else, gang? We got all kinds of stuff coming out.
Go team on 3, I'd say.
Sorry?
Go team on 3.
Go team on
1, 2, 3 team.
Go team.
Go team.
Go.
Okay, That's enough. Alex here, you've got an episode of Runs Like Hell coming out with YouTubing legend Kafuzi. I think that will be our next episode. That's going to come out at some point. Maybe even we'll tuck it in before the new year. We've got all sorts of other fun stuff. Alex and I are working on we're doing a video. We power ranked all the available super shoes right in the dead of summertime. We're going to do a follow-up year-end power ranking of all the current available super shoes as well, so keep an eye out for that. We're going to get that in under the wire before the end of 2025 so we can flush that baby and move on to 2026. Okay, gang. We will talk in the new year. No, we'll talk on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve maybe, right?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, until then. Talk to you soon.